In 1912, a Yale professor named Hiram Bingham III pulled nearly 200 human skeletons from burial caves scattered around Machu Picchu. Bones, teeth, fragments of lives lived 5 centuries ago. He shipped them across the ocean to a museum basement in Connecticut, and there they sat. For over 100 years, those remains gathered dust in storage drawers, their secrets locked inside degraded strands of ancient DNA. But in 2023, everything changed. An international team led by archaeologist Richard Berger of Yale and geneticist Lars Fehren-Schmitz of UC Santa Cruz extracted ancient DNA from the teeth of 34 individuals buried at the site. The results, published in Science Advances on July 26, 2023, revealed something no one expected. The people who lived and died at Machu Picchu did not come from the surrounding region. They came from everywhere: the Peruvian coast, the northern highlands, Ecuador, Colombia, deep inside the Amazon rainforest, and almost none of them were related to each other. Think about that. One of the most famous archaeological sites on Earth, and for over a century, nobody knew where its people actually came from. What the DNA revealed is not a sacred retreat hidden in the clouds. It is a machine, powered by human beings torn from their homelands across an empire spanning 2 million square kilometers. Every year, more than 1 million tourists climb to Machu Picchu. They photograph the stone terraces, the Temple of the Sun, the Intihuatana stone. They stand on a ridge 2,400 meters above sea level, perched between the peaks of Huayna Picchu and Machu Picchu Mountain, and they are told the same story. A lost city, a sacred citadel, discovered by Hiram Bingham in 1911. Have you ever stopped to ask who actually lived there? Here's what the tour guides leave out. Scholars have known for decades that Machu Picchu was not a city at all. It was a royal country estate, a vacation palace built for the Inca Emperor Pachacuti, and a 2021 radiocarbon study published in the journal Antiquity by Berger, Nesbitt, and Fehren-Schmitz confirmed it was constructed around 1420 CE, at least 20 years earlier than Spanish colonial records had suggested. So if Machu Picchu was a palace, not a city, the question becomes obvious: who kept it running? Who maintained those 600 terraces, prepared the food, brewed the chicha beer, and wove the cloth? Someone had to operate this estate year-round, even when the emperor was hundreds of kilometers away in Cusco. And those people were not volunteers. The Inca Empire, known as Tawantinsuyu, was the largest empire in pre-Columbian America. It stretched 2 million square kilometers across western South America, from modern Ecuador to Chile, and it ran on a system of forced labor that most history books barely mention. Have you ever heard of the Yanacona? Most people have not. At Machu Picchu, the permanent workforce consisted of Yanacona, individuals taken from conquered lands and permanently severed from their ethnic communities. They were not relocated as families or villages. They were extracted as isolated individuals. The women among them were often ACLLA, chosen women removed from their families as children and trained in state-run facilities before being assigned as wives to the Yanacona or as weavers and brewers for the royal household. Together, several hundred of these retainers lived at Machu Picchu year-round, and when they died, they were buried in caves and rock shelters outside the palace walls, never among the elite. That distinction matters, because those burial caves are exactly where the DNA came from, and what the teeth revealed rewrites everything we thought we knew about this place. Fehren-Schmitz and scientists at the UC Santa Cruz Paleogenomics Lab and the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology extracted ancient DNA from teeth of 34 individuals buried at Machu Picchu, plus 34 more from the Cusco region for comparison. The remains had been exposed to the elements for centuries, making the genetic material severely degraded, but using specialized techniques, the team enriched for approximately 1.2 million single nucleotide polymorphisms and compared the results against published ancient and modern genomes from across South America. Of the 30 individuals with analyzable ancestry, 17 carried DNA associated with distant regions of the empire. The entire Peruvian coast, the northern highlands, and at least 2 genetically distinct zones of the Amazon basin stretching into Ecuador and Colombia. Only 7 individuals could be tentatively linked to Peru's southern highlands, where Machu Picchu actually sits, and even those could not be confirmed as truly local. Let that sink in. More than half the people buried at this mountaintop palace came from regions separated by thousands of kilometers of mountain and jungle. How does that happen? What kind of system pulls individuals from rainforests and coastlines and scatters them across a mountain ridge in the Andes? Perhaps the most startling finding was the scale of Amazonian ancestry among Machu Picchu's residents. What could possibly explain DNA markers from deep inside the Amazon at a site high in the Andes? Roughly 1/3 of the individuals carried substantial genetic markers from Amazonian populations. That was a connection no one had predicted. At least 2 genetically distinct Amazonian regions were represented in the burials. Several individuals showed mixed ancestries combining coastal, highland, and Amazonian genetic signatures, sometimes from regions separated by thousands of kilometers. This level of genetic diversity was dramatically higher than what researchers found in the comparison population from the Cusco heartland. Fehren-Schmitz noted that some of these individuals came from regions traditionally believed to have been incorporated into the Inca Empire only later in its expansion, and yet they were already present at Machu Picchu from its earliest occupation. That challenges the standard chronology of Inca expansion itself. The empire's reach was broader and earlier than colonial-era accounts describe. But there is another layer to this story, and it might be the most human part of all. The burial pattern at Machu Picchu revealed something equally remarkable. The 4 cemetery areas were not organized by ethnic or genetic background. People of completely different ancestries were buried together in the same caves, sometimes side by side. When the team tested for biological relatedness, they found only a single pair of first-degree relatives among all 34 individuals. Most likely, a mother and a daughter buried in the same cave. Everyone else was unrelated. Can you picture that? Dozens of people from opposite ends of a continent, none of them family, all buried together on the same mountaintop. The Yanacona and Acala had been brought to Machu Picchu as isolated individuals, stripped from their families and communities. And yet, judging from the number of individuals with mixed ancestries from distant regions, they chose partners from other genetic groups and had children together. They built families from nothing. Ceramics buried with them told the same story. Pottery styles from multiple regions were found in the graves, many pieces showing evidence of careful repair. Imagine carrying a piece of pottery from a homeland you will never see again and fixing it every time it cracked because it was all you had left. DNA tells us who lived at Machu Picchu, but have you ever wondered why it is still standing after more than 500 years? The architecture tells us something just as extraordinary about the civilization that built it. Machu Picchu sits directly on 2 geological fault lines in one of the most seismically active zones on Earth. Around 1450, during construction, an earthquake registering at least magnitude 6.5 struck the site, visibly damaging the Temple of the Sun. The Inca did not abandon the location. They redesigned everything. They developed mortarless ashlar masonry, stones cut so precisely that not even a credit card can slide between them. These stones interlock like a 3-dimensional puzzle. During earthquakes, they move and sway with the ground, then settle back into position. Engineers call it the dancing stones phenomenon. Modern research estimates that 50 to 60% of total construction effort went into underground foundations, drainage systems, and site preparation. That invisible infrastructure is why the city still stands, while Spanish colonial buildings in Cusco collapsed during a massive earthquake in 1650. The walls tilt slightly inward, lowering their center of gravity. The doorways and windows are trapezoidal, designed to absorb seismic shock. More than 130 drainage holes were planned during initial construction, not added as afterthoughts. If you have ever wondered how ancient builders could outperform modern engineering, this is your answer. They did not fight the earthquakes. They designed their buildings to dance with them. The 2023 genome study does not tell us about the Inca elite themselves. No royal DNA has ever been analyzed. So ask yourself this: if the servants came from everywhere, what would the ruler's DNA reveal about who truly held power? What it does reveal is the machinery beneath the empire. A system that uprooted individuals from every corner of a 2 million square kilometers realm, severed their community ties, relocated them to mountain palaces, and created communities so genetically diverse that they have no parallel in the ancient Americas. That is not a footnote in history. That is a genetic blueprint of imperial control. Richard Berger described the result as a cosmopolitan community where genetic background played no role in determining where people were buried or who they married. Lucy Salazar of Yale called the DNA findings unexpected, noting that the role of the Amazon in the Inca Empire has been more important than previously recognized. The genomes of Machu Picchu's retainers are a genetic map of the entire Inca Empire, compressed into a single mountaintop. For a century, Machu Picchu's dead lay in museum drawers with their stories untold. Their DNA has finally spoken, and what it reveals is not a lost city of mystics and priests. It is a living portrait of empire, of people taken from rainforests and coastlines and highland valleys, brought together on a mountain ridge and forged into a community that had nothing in common except their service to a throne, their repaired pottery, their mixed ancestry children, their shared graves. These are the fingerprints of resilience in the face of forced displacement. And there is more to come. The Inca elite themselves have never been genetically tested. When they are, the contrast between the rulers in Cusco and the servants on the mountaintop may be the most revealing genetic story of all. How many other ancient sites are hiding secrets like this inside unanalyzed bones? But Machu Picchu is not the only ancient site whose DNA is rewriting the history of an empire. There is another discovery from the other side of the Andes that is even more extraordinary. History is never finished.